Hi, how are you? This is Iris Klassen, and I'm here with baby Luca, who's trying to eat my fingers. So he's at that stage now where everything goes into his mouth and he's chewing, and I think he might be teething. He's 8.5 kilos now. He's a big boy, 5 months old, and I'm having a blast. But you're probably not watching the video to get a baby update, so I'll jump straight to the question, which is about test coverage. Should I be looking at the test coverage for my solution? And should I pass or fail builds based on that? This is assuming you're doing continuous integration and you have a build server set up for your pipeline. I'm gonna add a disclaimer now that I don't have a right or wrong answer for you. I'm just gonna share with you some of my thinking, and then it's up to you to sort of draw a conclusion. I'll also tell you what I've decided to do. So recently we had a conference at work where we talked about tests. The reason we did that is because we don't have fantastic test coverage. As you know, we used to be a startup, and the first code that was written is sort of a spaghetti code. You just want to get something up and running to test the concept. And then we've tried to retrofit a lot of tests, but a lot of the developers we've had aren't used to doing test-driven development. They're maybe not used to writing unit tests at all. Let's be real. A lot of developers aren't comfortable writing tests and don't know how to write good tests. And that's okay, but it's something I definitely would learn if you're one of those. So we're lacking a lot of tests, and I came up with the idea. I suggested that maybe we'll look at test coverage. But this is a very sensitive topic because test coverage might say a few things, or it might just give a lot of inaccurate information. Test coverage, you can get that using various tools. For example, ReSharper has its famous .cover, Visual Studio has it baked in its enterprise edition. And test coverage will look at the coverage for classes, methods, and sometimes even branching and also conditions, conditional statements. Now it looks at coverage at different levels. So you can look at coverage just at lines being hit, but it might not necessarily, for example, say it's an if statement and you have a condition there. You want to make sure that both the if and the else part of the statement is covered, and you also want to test with different conditions. Not all code test coverage tools do that. .cover, the plugin used for TeamCity, at least doesn't look at branching, and that's a problem for us because we can get fairly okay test coverage on some of our assemblies. But the problem is that we have like 200 lines of method with 200 lines with heaps of branching, very high cyclomatic complexity, and we definitely want to look to branching as well. Because otherwise it's sort of going to give you that feeling that, oh, we got good test coverage, so we're good. But that's not what test coverage is for. Test coverage doesn't say anything about the quality of the tests. It's just sort of an indicator where you might want to add a few more tests. But it's not going to take away from you that you still have to write good tests that test all different types of conditions. However, if you have a tool that tests branching as well, for example, the more in-depth test coverage you get, the more value you get out of the resulting metric. However, this does mean that it will significantly slow down the running of the tests. So test coverage is usually done while you're running the actual tests, or as the next step on your build steps. And when I did it on TeamCity, we went from just spend just a few minutes on our unit tests steps to basically, I think it took like 15 minutes or something. And that's just for a few assemblies. If I was to add our full solution, that would take, we're talking about hours here. So maybe it's not something, unless you have really powerful build agents, maybe it's not something you want to have running for each commit. And also, what are you going to do with the metric? I definitely wouldn't set, I'm hesitant to set the threshold, for example, at least 80% code coverage. Because there are a few problems there. One, it doesn't say anything about the quality of the unit tests, and it might sort of, get the developers to just write empty tests that only do happy path testing, best case scenario, just to get that test coverage in to pass the build. But then it's not quality tests, and we think we have a very solid solution that's well tested, and turns out it's not. So then the 100% number can lie. And also it's really hard to get to 100% because you might have, for example, model classes which you for some reason have to mock out from tests. So it means that you can have classes with zero test coverage. But should you add unit tests and test getters and setters on properties? That's actually a good question, because it seems kind of silly to just test properties, but properties are methods. You know, each property consists of two methods, a getter and a setter. And although, you know, dummy classes or plain old classes usually have empty getters and setters, that behavior might change further down the line. And if you have unit tests, they will catch that change, hopefully, if the tests are good. However, you know, if you have a lot of those classes, there's going to be a lot of tests, and the tests take time to run, and it's just, you know, at some point it's just going to feel ridiculous. I'm not saying it is ridiculous, I'm just sort of introducing the pros and cons here. So say that you decide that you don't want to write tests for those classes, so you omit them from the test coverage. Well, what if somebody goes in and adds logic there further down the line, maybe even business logic, you know, important stuff? That's not going to get caught in the metric, so you're not going to see that change has happened, and you're going to have your test coverage result as you expect it to be. However, it's going to be a number that lies. So okay, let's say we've decided we're not going to have 100% coverage, because that's going to be impossible and it's going to yield a lot of really stupid tests. So we've decided on 80%. I'm just playing with scenarios here. The problem is that 80% might be the 80% that doesn't have any important logic in your solution, you know? The very easy tests to write, because unless you're a bit weird like me, no, okay, not if you're weird. Some people like writing tests. I actually absolutely love writing tests, and I love test-driven development. It's just a fun way to write code. Not everybody likes it. I'd say the average developer finds it a little bit painful to write a test, because, you know, if it's complex code, you have to do mocking, and you don't want that mocking to be fragile, and there's, you know, it's a lot of overhead. It feels like overhead when you're writing the test. So, you know, you're going to be tempted to just write the easy test for the easy code, just to get that coverage and get that build passing, and, you know, everybody's happy. But then, of course, there are bugs further down the line, and people are not so happy anymore. And as soon as people start sort of ignoring the metrics or disrespecting the metrics, there's no value whatsoever in the metric. So, yes, this was just a very short sort of discussion I had with myself. My conclusion is that we're going to have some test coverage jobs that are going to be run on fairly frequently, maybe every night or something, just so we have a metric to look at. I might add a few alerts for some really, you know, maybe on some particular assemblies where I want to have good test coverage, the assemblies that contain a lot of business logic, and we have to have a lot of tests there. But I'm not going to pass or fail a build based on the metric. And in the beginning now, I'm just going to use the metric to sort of have an indicator where we need to add more tests. We still have to take a look at the tests we have written and make sure they're really good. This is where pull requests and code reviews come in. And also I'm going to be using a tool that does test coverage using branching as well, because we have a lot of complexity, and I want to make sure that we get proper coverage and not just, you know, statements being hit or lines of code. So that's my thought. I am no expert in this whatsoever. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure it out, and I just thought I'd share my thoughts with you, and hopefully you share your thoughts with me, and maybe you're an expert and you have a solution for me. Who knows? Anyways, that was today's question. I hope I was able to at least give you something to think about, if not maybe even an answer to. And this guy is very fussy and very hungry, so I'm gonna go feed him. Thank you for watching. Have a fantastic day and take care. Bye!